Hello everyone, this is Dr. Saritha, working as Professor of Chemistry in St. Peter's Engineering College. So in the previous session, we have discussed about the some part of factors affecting the rate of corrosion. In that, major two parts, the nature of metal and nature of corroding environment, which are going to show their effect on rate of corrosion. So in the previous class, we have discussed about the how nature of metal, how different characteristics of metal are going to influence the rate of corrosion. That is the passivity of the metal, which is one of the important thing, and position of metal, over voltage, relative anodic and cathodic areas, purity of metal, physical state of metal, and also nature of surface film, which are going to show effect on the rate of corrosion. That will comes under the category of nature of metal. Now the second most important thing, that is the nature of environment, the nature of corroding environment, which is going to show its effect on rate of corrosion. So what are the important characteristics or important things or important gases or maybe some different things which are going to show environmental conditions which are going to show effect on the rate of corrosion, we will discuss under this category. So under this we are having the different properties of the environmental conditions that which will influence the rate of corrosion is temperature, humidity in air, amount of oxygen in air, amount of oxygen, presence of ions in air, and presence of different impurities in air, nature of conductance or conductance of the corroding environment or corroding medium, then pH. These are the important characteristics of the environment which are going to show their influence on the rate of corrosion. So one by one now how all these are going to show their effect on the rate of corrosion, that we will discuss in this session. So the first thing, the first factor which is showing its effect on the rate of corrosion is temperature. Corrosion is a chemical reaction like all other chemical reactions, where what will happen is as the temperature of the reaction increases, the rate of reaction also increases, because there more number of molecules will get activation energy, so that they will easily transfer through that activation energy barrier, and that more number of reactants will get converted to products. So in this way, like how the temperature is going to show its effect on the normal chemical reaction, in the same way the rate of corrosion is also influenced by the temperature. As the temperature increases, the rate of corrosion increases, and at lower temperatures obviously always rate of corrosion will be less, and as the temperature increases, rate of corrosion increases. For example, in the oxidation corrosion we have discussed, like most of the metals will undergo oxidation corrosion at the high temperatures, except the three noble metals, that is gold, silver and platinum. Remaining all metals will undergo oxidation corrosion at the high temperature, whereas at the low temperature only alkali and alkaline earth metals will undergo oxidation corrosion, because as the temperature increases, the rate of corrosion reaction increases. In that way, most of the metals will undergo oxidation corrosion at high temperatures. So that is the effect of temperature on rate of corrosion. As the temperature increases, as the temperature increases, rate of corrosion reaction also increases. Rate of corrosion reaction also increases. This is the effect of temperature on the rate of corrosion. Next is humidity, presence of moisture in the air. This is one of the important factor and which is required for the formation of electrochemical cells. During the wet corrosion, the electrochemical cells will be formed when the metal is exposed to the moisture and when the environment is having the moisture, because it is acting as the electrolytic solution. So due to the presence of humidity in the air, electrochemical cells are formed on the surface of metal. Hence, as the humidity in the air increases, means as the moisture content increases in the air, rate of corrosion also increases. Okay, this is one of the factor, and most probably the gases which are present in the environment like sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, H2S, all these gases will absorb the moisture present in the water, so present in the air, will absorb the moisture and then act as electrolytic solution, means act as the liquid medium for conducting medium for the formation of electrochemical cells on the surface of metal. So if sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, H2S and other gases are present in the air, they will absorb the moisture from the air and they will act as the electrolytic solution, which will be helpful for the construction of an electrochemical cell on the surface of metal. So moisture content is mandatory for the wet type of corrosion, or that is electrochemical cell formation on the surface of metal. And also due to rain, if rainwater is flowing on the metal surfaces, then it will completely clean off the oxide layer from the metals. So that oxide layer which is acting as a protective layer, and because of that washing away of the oxide layer, the metal will be free and it will be exposed to the again environment, so that again oxygen or some other gases will attack on the of the environment will attack on the metal surface, and that will leads to the corrosion again. So if rainwater flows on the metal surface, it will completely wash away the oxide layer, oxide protective layer from the metal surface, and also the moisture will be absorbed by all the gases like this, and it will act as a electrolytic medium or conducting medium, liquid medium for the formation of electrochemical cells on the surface of metal. So this is the role of humidity in the air. Always moisture content will enhance the rate of corrosion or will increase the rate of corrosion. So this is the second factor which is showing effect on the rate of corrosion. Next is nature of impurities or presence of impurities present in the air. So this kind of impurities in the air are mostly present in the industrial areas, where the industrial areas are having the air which is composed of different gases like H2S, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide. These are the gases, and also some of the fumes of acids like sulfuric acid and HCl. These are the acid fumes which are present in the air, and also some of the suspended particles. Some of the suspended particles like ammonium chloride, sodium chloride, charcoal and ammonium sulfate even. So all these are the suspended particles particles present in the air, and most of these gases, fumes of acid and suspended particles are present in the air in the nearby industrial areas. So there what will happen is this presence of these fumes, these gases will absorb the moisture and they will form the acids. That acids will directly attack on the metal. That is the one disadvantage, and most probably these gases will attack on sometimes these gases will directly attack on the metal surface by converting them into their derivatives. So in that way the metals will be corroded into their derivatives. And if acidic fumes are present in the air like sulfuric acid and HCl, these acids will directly convert the metal into their derivatives, maybe of sulfates or maybe of chlorides. So in that way that will lead to the corrosion. And suspended particles, if the air is having suspended particles, then that suspended particles will get deposited on the metal surface, and it will also absorb the moisture and act as a electrolytic solution, act as a conducting medium, so that it will enhance the rate of wet corrosion or electrochemical corrosion. Suspended particles will get deposited on the metal surface, and because of that electrochemical corrosion will happen. That may leads to the differential aeration corrosion like waterline corrosion and all, or otherwise it will absorb the moisture and create an electrolytic solution, create a conducting medium for the electrochemical cell formation. So that is also one of the disadvantage if the air is having the suspended particles. So on the whole, if impurities are present in the air, whatever may be the impurities, that is whether it is the gaseous impurities or whether it is the fumes of the acids or if it is the suspended particles, all of them will increase the rate of corrosion for the metals, and generally impurities are present in the air in the industrial area. So this is about the nature of impurities present in the air, which are going to show their effect on the rate of corrosion. The fourth factor which is going to show effect on the nature of under the nature of environment, that is the presence of ions. Presence of ions in the air or in the environment or in the water. Presence of ions. So ions, again here both anions as well as cations, both of them are going to show their effect on the rate of corrosion. In the anions we have to discuss about two different anions. One is the silicate ion. If silicate ions are present in the surrounding environment of the metal, then these silicate ions will attack on the metal and forms the metal silicates and forms metal silicate. This metal silicate will act as a protective layer like the oxide layer, and it will prevent the attacking of the other gases on the surface of metal. So if silicate ions are present in the air, then silicate ions will attack on the metal and convert them into metal silicates, which is acting as a protective layer, which will prevent the attack of the other atmospheric gases on the surface of metal. Hence in this case the rate of corrosion will be less. So other anions is chloride ions. If chloride ions are present in the air, they will absorb the moisture. One thing is the chloride ions will absorb the moisture and also they will destroy the oxide layer. Destroy the oxide layer. So if chloride ions are present, they will absorb the moisture and will get deposited on the metal surface acting as the electrolytic solution, and also it will destroy the protective oxide film from the metal surface, so that again the free metal surface will be exposed to the environment, so that again further more gases will attack on the metal surface. So this is about the presence of chloride ions. Presence of chloride ions will increase the rate of corrosion, whereas presence of silicate ions will decrease the rate of corrosion because it is acting as the protective layer. And coming to the cations which are present in the corroding environment. So in the cations, mostly almost all the metals will have high rate of corrosion in presence of ammonium ions. Most of the metals are having high rate of corrosion if ammonium ions are present in the solution, or ammonium ions are present in the water or air. Then coming to the copper ions, this is happening. Copper ions are mostly present in the marine water, that is in the sea water. So the ship hulls which are made with iron or steel, if the marine water is having copper in the water, then this copper will get deposited on the ship hulls, on the ship material, so that what will happen is this copper will act as the cathode and the iron will act as the anode, so that the ship hull will undergo corrosion. So there also tiny electrochemical cells are formed, and there the iron metal will undergo corrosion. So presence of copper ions in the marine water increases the corrosion of the ship marines. And presence of ammonium ions in the water will enhance the rate of corrosion for most of the metals. So this is about the presence of ions, anions as well as cations, which are going to show their effect on the rate of corrosion. So next is the important factor which is showing effect, that is the amount of oxygen. Amount of oxygen which is going to show its effect on rate of corrosion. So in the concentration cell corrosion, we have discussed that when a metal surface is exposed to varying concentration of air, means varying concentration of oxygen, then the poor oxygenated part will act as the anodic part and the high oxygenated part will act as the cathodic part. So always during the corrosion, the anode will undergo corrosion, means poor oxygenated part will be corroded, whereas the high oxygenated part will be protected from the corrosion. So presence of oxygen in air will enhances the rate of concentration cell corrosion, which is known as differential aeration corrosion. So the examples for differential aeration corrosion is waterline corrosion, which is taking place in the water storage tanks, and also the pitting corrosion, and the corrosion which is taking place in the mesh, for the mesh and railings generally, where we are having the connections or joinings between the metal rods. So in that condition, the poor oxygenated part will act as the anodic part and it will be corroded, whereas the high oxygenated part will act as the cathodic part and it will be protected from the corrosion. So that is the amount of oxygen. If oxygen presence is there in the air, that will leads to the differential aeration corrosion. And also oxygen, presence of oxygen is required for the cathodic reactions to take place during the electrochemical corrosion. So generally at anode, whatever may be the metal, at anode the metal will undergo oxidation to form the metal ions, where the dissolution of metal will take place into the solution in the form of ion. So here the corrosion is taking place. And at cathode, the possible reaction is half O2 plus H2O plus 2 electrons gives rise to 2 OH H minus. Means hydroxide ions are formed at the cathode. So for the formation of these hydroxide ions, oxygen is must in the air. So presence of oxygen will influence the cathodic reaction, and also presence of oxygen is accelerating the concentration cell corrosion. So this is about the amount of oxygen present in the air which is going to show its effect on the rate of corrosion. And next is the conductance. Conductance of the corroding medium. What is the conductance of this corroding medium? How it is going to show its effect is generally the underground metallic structures, maybe underground pipes or underground submarine metals which will be buried underground. They will be showing their rate of corrosion is mainly based on the conductance of the corroding medium, because here the soil is acting as the, in that underground metallic structures, the soil will be acting as the corroding environment. So in that conditions, we are having two different types of soils which can hold the water and other minerals, that is clay soils, and other soils which cannot hold the water and other minerals, that is sandy soils. So the clay soils are mineralized soils. They will be having, the clay or mineralized soils will be having high water content or high mineral content in the soil, so that they will hold the water for longer periods and will be helpful for the corrosion of that particular metallic structures. Whereas the sandy soils which are having less moisture content and less mineral content, they will not act as a conducting medium because of less content of water. So in that case, rate of corrosion will be less. So in that way, the conductance of corroding medium is going to show its influence on the rate of corrosion. Always clay